but let's charge with Russ. Russ Dorsey from Stadium swinging by to represent the media side of this heavyweight battle. Eric Kratz will represent the player side of this clubhouse confrontation that will be going on frequently now. What are you allowed to say and not say? What are you allowed to say is said and not said? Russ, what's going on, dude?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Good. So we'll get to the Phillies and the
Punch
Braves.
the face, Kratzy? Could
No.
you?
I could not punch that face. Like,
some people have such a punchable face. That's not a punchable face.
That is not one of them.
Nope.
Like, no chance. Like, that smile, you would smile one time in the ring, and I'd be like, that's cool.
Nah.
Hug.
That's cool.
I got to thank my parents for that one.
Exactly. You had nothing to do with this, but thanks, Mom and Dad. Okay. So before we get into the game portion of Phillies and Braves, which also, by the way, we did an instant post-game show last night on FT YouTube. Let's get the next layer, which we didn't cover on that particular show. And that is Orlando Arcia versus Bryce Harper versus Travis d'Arnaud versus the media. No?
I mean, there's a whole layer there. There's definitely a whole layer there. But what Travis d'Arnaud said, I love d'Arnaud. So, I mean, it's, as a player, I represent the player's side of this. He's got to know. He's got to know better. I mean, he was excited when he said it last night. I'm sure other things, or the night before, I'm sure other things were said, but d'Arnaud to say, like, I thought this would stay, I don't even remember his quote now, but is there anything like,
oh, we'll run it. You want to run some of those?
Let's run d'Arnaud's. If we have d'Arnaud's, let's run it so that we can instant react.
You want to do Arcia first?
Yeah, let's do Arcia first.
So let's run Arcia, Orlando Arcia after the game. And for context, in case you've been hiding under a rock, Arcia was excited in the clubhouse after the big comeback dub for the Braves, called out Harper a little bit. Media were there. They were allowed to be there. So Harper heard about it, homered twice. Pretty sure that he's really good at baseball and can homer anyway. But he homered twice and looked back at Arcia, and we love the drama. We love the petty, fun drama. And this is what Arcia said after his team got smacked in Game 3.
No, just because, I mean, when you win the clubhouse, I just wanted the impression that you could say whatever you wanted. So, I guess it's just something that was reported, and just that.
When you said what you said, did you intend for it to get back to Harper when you said that?
Cuando dijiste lo que dijiste, que si tuviste la intención que Harper lo escuche.
No está supuesto escucharlo, por eso lo estamos celebrando en el clubhouse.
He wasn't supposed to hear. That's why we were celebrating. That was why we were talking in the clubhouse.
Okay, so that's Arcia. I have two more, and then Russ is ready to punch back. We'll see if you have a punchable face.
I have a punchable face. Just not my nose. This nose is huge. Don't punch it.
It'll hurt. You'll break your hand. Oh. Step 2, Bryce Harper after Game 3 SmackDown.
I mean, anytime anybody says something, right? I mean, that's what it's all about.
Did you enjoy staring him down?
Yeah, I mean, I stared right at him.
Love it. Bryce, great for the game. No matter what you think about the topic, I love the straight up real answers. The most players in any situation, not most, many, get asked about any kind of controversy. They pause for a sec and think back to the Rolodex of the 5 cookie cutter answers that they have to put out there for the world. We're just trying to play the game, just trying to win. We're not worried about blah, blah. No, Bryce just said it like it was. And lastly, Travis d'Arnaud chimed in to back up Orlando Arcia, because then the topic gets into, are the media in the clubhouse allowed to say what's said in the clubhouse? Travis, go.
The clubhouse is a sanctuary, and I think when things like that get out, it doesn't make people want to talk to the media at all. It affects the people who have been great to us all year, and it is what it is.
Okay, so now, Russ, before you chime in, I'm not going to give my full take here. I'm just going to give the business side of baseball for a moment, that if you're a player and you say absolutely nothing, like let's say the players just don't talk, period, ever in life, like never say anything to media, never do whatever, you will lose significant interest in the sport. Like, let's remember why everyone is here, not just like getting paid, but also just like why we're playing games and all of this stuff, like because of fans. So access is important. And that was said by Arcia now, to my understanding, when media was allowed in, which is there's a clear delineation. Media not in, private. Then they bring them in and they tell the players, clubhouse is now open, and whatever is said during that time period is allowed to be publicly expressed by the media. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been a reporter since I was 18 years old, right? I've been writing about baseball for a while now, not as long as some others, but for me, when you walk into the clubhouse, right, when you have open clubhouse time, it's not like the thing that was said by Orlando Arcia was said off the record. It wasn't like Orlando Arcia and Travis d'Arnaud was off into a little corner and somebody was ear hustling what they were saying. This was said out in the open amongst media members during that time that is allocated to reporters. I think, to me, it's super unfair to the people that do that job every day, that are very respectful and know that this is their sanctuary. This is where the players, that's their home. And we're allowed access in there. And I know that 99.99% of reporters are respectful of that. But you cannot turn what Orlando Arcia said in the open, in public, out loud amongst a lot of different people, that all of a sudden it was the media's fault that got out. Also, if you said it, stand on it. Because I think they've made it a much bigger story than it actually is. It wasn't like he said anything disrespectful. He said attaboy Harper after game 2, after Bryce, got thrown out on the bases to end that game. They won. He said it. Bryce heard it, came back, balled out in game 3. And you just got to be like, hey, he got the best of us today. We got the best of them yesterday, and we have another game to play. Done. Like, to make it a thing now, like, ooh, the boogeyman found out that we were talking about him in the clubhouse. Like, it's, come on, man. I think it's unfair to the people that do this job every day and are very respectful and have really good relationships with players where things aren't taken out of context. And I think there's a lot of people around baseball, a lot of reporters around baseball that are very respectful of players and their space. But during that time, something that's said out loud in the middle of the clubhouse with everybody in there is not something that's off the record. And I think it's on players to understand, what's on the record, what's not on the record, what is on background. Like, I think the more media savvy players become, you will avoid some things like this. But I just think it's a situation where you can't look at the media as being the villain here because Bryce Harper heard what you said and then balled out.
I don't think he balled out because you heard what he said, but
Exactly.
What I'm impressed with is that you've only been writing for 6 years. You say you started when you were 18. Man,
well, I'm
awesome.
28 now.
No, you're 24. You're 24.
My ID says 28 years old.
Okay, that's fair. But so if they're in there in that situation, like we talked about it, like one of my favorite parts of the whole play to end that game was the sheer emotion of that moment. Like, yeah, I mean, one person, Acuna was sea-walking, but there was no choreographed dancing. It was like sheer emotion of like, oh, dang it. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Like, and Riley picks the ball up. And even to the point where Jeff Francoeur, I think, said it. I think it was Francoeur said it, that like Matt Olson it was Brock Starr. Brock Holt last night, he was saying, he's like, Matt Olson and Austin Riley are two of the most like even keel guys. And that emotion brought them to like raise their hands and they were yelling. So that pours into the clubhouse. But what people don't understand, the reporter wasn't standing there waiting to hear what Arcia said. Look at Olson on that play. Like, he is so amped. He's so amped. Riley's running around. He backs the play up and gives a huge fist pump there from Olson, a huge fist pump. Like, there's full emotions. Reporters are not in the tunnel as they're walking up to the clubhouse. There is a 10-minute, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the playoffs, it's actually 15 minutes in between the end of the game and when media members can come in. So there's an extra buffer there. And so it's not like they got him when he said this in the tunnel. He said this in the locker room.
I'd like to also add, Russ, so I've covered playoff baseball in person for over a decade, where I'm at, 20 games in the playoffs or something like that. I'm in clubhouses waiting to jump in. I have heard quite a few things, especially when it's the champagne celebration time on a clincher, where I'm like, we're standing outside the clubhouse waiting, right? You're like outside the door and it's so loud that you can hear it. Different, right? It's not open yet, okay? Where there's been some call outs and things. Then when the doors open and you walk in there, like, we're right there. You see us. Yeah. What are you talking about? Also, they're not evil. They're not the bad guys. I mean, there are some that are a pain in the ass that are just like trying to get shit out of people, but most aren't. Most are asking questions and just doing their job. And also they're the buffer because you can't just let, 30,000 fans into the clubhouse to ask questions. This is a much better alternative in my mind. They can come on this show whenever they'd like, but it's understood. Like, we don't need to explain this to reporters, right? Like, everyone knows, like, once you walk in there, whatever's said, it doesn't have to be this either. Like, if Kratz is across the room and he's saying stuff, like, sometimes that becomes news, and that's okay. It doesn't have to just be this. Oh, it wasn't in my mic, so doesn't count. Like, we're getting way too much into semantics. So I think you just have to accept as a player that you take the L here, as someone like Travis. Eric O'Flaherty, who used to play for the Braves. Harper didn't go deep because some weasel reported that a guy joked about a blunder. He went deep because he got 2 hanging sliders. You got to be a real dumb shit to think he hit 2 home runs because he was mad or whatever. It's the playoffs. Dumb story. Emotions don't matter if you make pitches. Okay, well, first off, weasel's not nice because he didn't weasel on the situation. Right. Weasel on the situation could be, hey, we're in a private setting. We're off the record. We were outside of a place that we shouldn't have been in, and we heard something. That's weasel.
I heard it down the tunnel.
Yeah, that could be weasel. That was not weasel. But also, I will say it is a fun story to cover, and I do think that Bryce Harper used a little bit of it as bulletin board material. Would he have hit the 2 home runs anyway? Sure, maybe, but like, does it hurt? I mean, does it hurt? Do guys like to use things as motivation? Have we had Zach Gallen and many others on this show that have talked about times in the past that have driven them to this point that they don't forget? Freaking keeps receipts in his phone of who didn't vote for him. Of course it matters.
Definitely matters.
I think Bryce Harper is one of the best postseason performers I've seen since I've been covering baseball. And one of the best moments I've had as a reporter was when he homered in the NLCS last year to send the Phillies to the World Series against the Padres. The guy, he just rises to the occasion. He's the ultimate showman. And in a time where you have this storyline kind of brewing with him and Arcia, no, it's not because of that he homered. It's because he's Bryce Harper. It's because he's the ultimate showman. It's because he's the guy that they call MV3. And that guy, when the Phillies need him to, that's why you give that guy $330 million. Because when you need that big-time homer, when you need the guy to rise to the occasion, he does it. It just adds a little bit more fun, more spice, the fact that the thing with Arcia happened.
You feel like this is like a small market, large market thing? You know, when people are like, oh, this media market's so much tougher to play in than, say, in Atlanta. Atlanta's an easy market, in my opinion, from seeing reporters in the Northeast, Philly, Boston, New York, the places that I've played up here. Is this a small market, large market thing? Because you saw Alec Boehm say, I hate this effing place.
Yeah, but just one clear-cut difference. So that's regular season. So I think for this very moment, there's enough media covering any game that's going on.
So all of a sudden, Atlanta's now thrust into a large market. Is this,
I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, Arcia's been in the league for a while. I mean, you know him.
I'm not talking about Arcia. I'm talking about more like
just how the coverage goes.
Just how the whole team covered this thing. Like even the translator was kind of like, well, this isn't what he meant to say. Like that was not direct translation. He put his own enunciation to that.
Why is it so soft too? I'm just like, I mean, you're the player side. Just be like, yo, we said it all good. Like Russ said, who cares? It's
if you
not...
own up to it, it's a non-story today. It's like, yeah, I said it. We were excited about the win. Reporters were in the clubhouse. I said it. I own that. We won the ball game. They won it today, and we have another game. It's not like this is the end of the series. There's another game to be played.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit of this is some frustration from the Braves that, yo, they might get bounced, right? Momentum is not on their side, and you'd have the same team that bounced you in the NLDS last year bounce you again this year when you had the great regular season and you hit all the homers. You have the NL MVP in Acuna, who's 2 for 10 in the series. And so I think some of that plays into this as well, where you're already frustrated, right? You're frustrated that, you know, the one guy that you don't want to beat you, and now you could be going home. I think all that factors in.
Yeah, and maybe the one person that's excited about all this drama, Brian Snitker. Snitker was to me, if I'm a Braves fan, don't put my angst on Bryce Harper or Orlando Arcia, whichever side of this argument there's no way Bryce Elder should have been facing Bryce Harper.
Okay. Well, to be continued on that front, we'll get to some game analysis later. We'll have some highlights and we'll run through it. But Russ, your work is done. We needed the media perspective. We got it. We're on the same page. And yes, this team is on the ropes right now. We'll see what happens. Good talk, dude. We'll get you next week.
See you guys.
See you soon. Poll question.